When Jeff Gordon sped onto the racing scene in the early 90s, he was on a hot streak that no driver yet or since has matched.
And Jeff Gordon is about to write his name in the racing history books.
Little did fans know he was just getting started.
I've learned, to be aggressive but have patience at the same time, which is pretty hard.
Over his long and storied career, Jeff has racked up more awards and accolades than almost anybody in the biz. The guy's won Daytona 500 3 times and the Winston Cup Series 4. It is tough to name a car more iconic than his number 24 Rainbow Chevy. And all the while he was cruising on the track, he also made a name for himself as a charismatic, domineering personality, at the same time being a capable and shrewd businessman.
When Jeff Gordon takes the white flag.
But every king must have haters.
Ha! Gay!
Jeff's reign at the top has been marked by controversy as much as success. He's been accused of countless misdeeds, including cheating, tire soaking, and even being in a relationship with a fellow driver, Steven Rhodes. His haters have a longer list of complaints than the Daytona 500, calling Jeff flashy, sanctimonious, you name it. In 2004, his detractors became so irate after a controversial victory over Dale Earnhardt Jr. They collectively threw beer cans at the guy. Do you know how mad a NASCAR driver has to be to part with his beer? That's very, very mad. So, today's video, we're gonna be digging into Jeff's life to find out what really lies beneath.
Jeff Gordon will win it for the second time.
Is he going to make a comeback to racing? What is his complicated history with his ex-wife? And what was happening behind the scenes when he was making a name for himself on the track? So calling all Jeff Gordon fans and Jeff Gordon haters, let's dig in. But before we do, please hit the thumbs up icon if you enjoy this video. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss a photo finish. Now start your engines because we're gonna find out. What happened? Will Jeff race again? Few drivers in the history of NASCAR, hell, the history of cars period, drove as well and successfully as Jeff did. He survived the cutthroat life of a professional racer from the flashy days of the early 90s all the way up to 2015, when he finally hung up his gloves for good. But just 2 years later in 2017, he momentarily paused his retirement. Just long enough to help his team win the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona race.
What's the contact there at the end, but I'm just so honored to be a part of this.
But that was understood to be kind of a blip. He had very little motivation to really come out of retirement.
Years on the track, Jeff Gordon will retire from NASCAR at the end of the season.
After decades of devilish driving, you might think Jeff would enjoy his relaxation enough to stay away from the track. But something happened to change his mind. In August of 2021, it was announced that Jeff would be competing in a race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to be held over Labor Day weekend. That's right.
What?
After half a decade of honest retirement, Jeff would be racing competitively again. But why? This time in a Porsche. Jeff's return. It all started out as innocent fun. Jeff Gordon's friend had just bought a new Porsche and Jeff took a spin. Well, it's a Porsche, and he enjoyed it so much he decided to get one of his own. But it turned out the purchase came with a catch. If he bought it, he had to race it.
In order to, if you're gonna own one of these cars, you're gonna have to race it. So here I am at Indianapolis.
Fine, Jeff said, I'll race it. So he called up his buddy Ray Evernham and asked him to join him at the Porsche Sports Car Together Festival. Heck, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was the first place Jeff made his name as a racer. But there was one more catch for the two veteran speedsters. Neither one of them had much experience competitively racing sports cars, let alone Porsches. But hey, what's the learning curve for one of the greatest drivers of all time? So the two scrambled to find crews for the upcoming competition, and the race was on. So what happened? Did Jeff come out of retirement and get number one again? Well, no, he didn't. He finished in 22nd place, a far cry from the dozens of wins he has picked up in his glory days. So what made Jeff get 22nd? Well, as he sees it, his loss wasn't much of a loss at all. He said he was barely adjusted to the Porsche, saying the AVS brakes and the weight of the vehicle were foreign to him. Furthermore, his objective in the race hadn't been domination. He went out there to push himself and have a good time, and he accomplished that.
He said, I want this day to go on forever. He really is enjoying it.
Hey, just take it from him. He said, quote, I wanted to do some fun things, make some passes. I made a pass on the white flag lap. That made my whole weekend. I think we ended on a positive note. So can we expect to see him back out there in a similar race in the future? Well, Jeff said, quote, today turned the corner for me, so I hope I get to do another one day. Jeff Gordon and God. Jeff Gordon in many ways is a walking, or should I say driving, contradiction. For every person who celebrates him as one of the most decorated drivers in NASCAR history, you'll certainly find someone else who thinks he's a flashy egotist. But this complexity isn't just a result of his worldwide fame, as Jeff grappled with yet another contradiction, one that didn't involve his on-track performance at all. And while there were no cars involved in this saga, it did prove to be just as dangerous to Jeff's career as the high speeds and tight spots he grappled with in his car. We know Jeff Gordon was one of the hottest hotshots in racing history. The guy was the youngest driver to win a NASCAR title, the youngest to win the Daytona 500, and this guy was only 25 years old. At the same time, he was merging into a new lane that had nothing to do with vehicles: religion. Although Jeff wasn't raised in a spiritual household, he became increasingly interested in Christianity as he made a name for himself. And it wasn't long before he was taping Bible verses to his steering wheel. Fortunately, not to the windshield. Hotel hookups. There was a different religion Jeff was also discovering at that same time, and it wasn't nearly as holy. In the early 90s, Jeff got to know Brooke Seeley, who was working as a Miss Winston Cup model and strutting her stuff down the racetrack. He was instantly enamored with her stunning looks and shot his shot. But here's the problem. NASCAR had an unwritten rule that drivers couldn't date track models. And there was the whole God thing Jeff was learning. But that wouldn't stop the upstart speedster. He had an idea. He could just date Brooke in secret, perfect. And that's what he did. Whenever he'd take her to a restaurant and someone the pair knew would show up, he would flee the scene like a cheating spouse, ducking out the back door, or in extreme circumstances, the kitchen. And restaurants weren't the only place Jeff got sneaky either. He claims he became an expert at sneaking in and out of hotel rooms. So what happened? Did the pair have to keep their relationship secret indefinitely? Well, fortunately, no. Brooke stepped down from her role as the Cup model in 1994, and the couple went public with their relationship that same year. The same year they were also married. So happily ever after, right? Not so fast. The aftermath. So what happened in the next few years is kinda murky. Nobody can say for sure what happened behind closed doors in a marriage. But what Brooke had to say wasn't very flattering towards Jeff's image as a good Christian man. In 2002, Brooke filed for divorce, claiming marital misconduct. Now this term is vague, but her accusations were not. She said that Jeff was hooking up with a model, Deanna Merriman, known for her work on Baywatch and Playboy. Well, Jeff countersued, but the court found Brooke's argument pretty substantial, and she walked away with over $15 million. Now I know there is a lesson here, but what it is depends on your interpretation of the situation. Do you think Jeff screwed up or betrayed his faith? Or do you think that's just what life is in the fast lane? Regardless of your opinion, I think the story shows there's one fact we can all agree on. No matter how fast you drive, your wife will always catch up to you. Fortunately for Jeff, his story doesn't end there. After he and Brooke went their separate ways, he made a little pit stop with a model, Amanda Church. And their relationship developed quickly. The two were soon living together in Manhattan. In Manhattan, I also walked by Jeff Gordon once, and he was very short, but also quite charismatic. In 2003, Jeff shacked up with another model, Ingrid Vanderbosch, and I am sensing a pattern here. a model if you will. But something must have gone a bit differently here because Jeff stuck around and the two were married in 2006. He and Ingrid have been together ever since. As you can see, it must be tough living at the top. Everybody wants a piece of you for better or worse. But here's what I can say about Jeff Gordon. His recent appearance at the Labor Day race has shown a different side to the guy. I think a lot of proven racers wouldn't want to compete under uncertain conditions in a car they don't have a lot of experience with years after retiring. But Jeff was perfectly content to get out there and do his best, have some fun. Because, after all, isn't the rush of racing the most important part? That's what has brought millions of people together to enjoy the beautiful sport of NASCAR year after year. So now if you'll excuse me, I've got to head out to the garage. I have an old beater, a cold beer, and a race on the tube that is calling my name. But before you switch off, please hit the thumbs up icon if you don't mind, it really helps. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you what happened.